Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunivari Paschatite Shitarne. So here's a presentation just for you called Bhakti Lessons from the World Around Us. One of the directives Caitanya Mahāprabhu gives this gardening analogy, extends it. Cultivation often is a agricultural term. It is a way in which preparing soil, amending, then planting produces some result. And amazingly, we have a center of emotion, intelligence within us that can be cultivated. It's especially important because we're humans and we have this ability to cultivate the heart. And one of the main principles is receptivity. In fact, in the Caitanya Charitamrita, in the Adi Lila, 4th chapter, Srila Prabhupada mentions how every living being has an appreciating capacity. In fact, every species of life, and in every form that a living being takes, that living being has a relationship with Krishna. Described in different ways. For instance, there's Annamoy. Some living beings are so simple that they only experience the world through eating. And then, of course, we know that there are varieties of species, but as is mentioned in the Bhāgavatam, human life is rare. Nrideham adyam sulabham sadulabham. It's very rare to get a human form. And the human form has the highest capacity for receptivity or appreciation of Krishna. And so, actually, you can stay on that slide. Anyway, go ahead. It's still about receptivity, as you wish. So there's a science for becoming receptive. And one could argue, and Prabhupada does mention in the section from the Bhāgavatam from the Caitanya Charitamrita that I mentioned, we have an appreciating capacity. By the way, are the slides slightly chopped? Oh, I see. It's when I move my mouse in such a way that it just seems a little chopped to me at the bottom. So the practice of Krishna consciousness, one might argue, is really about developing receptivity. And there are these various ways in which, and some of them we discussed earlier when we were talking about coming to know Krishna, has to do with devotion. And some of the qualities that engender receptivity are humility, a service attitude, submission, and sincerity. Still on the subject of cultivation and the metaphor of growing, for instance, from a seed, as Caitanya Mahāprabhu mentioned, there's a bhakti lata, a bij, and it can grow. So this term, Shravanadijal, means Shravana, hearing, and Adi means etc. And Jal means water. It's a delightful metaphor that we can relate to, because if you've ever taken care of a plant before and you notice that when you water it, it grows miraculously. There's a way in which when we water the bhakti seed within us by hearing as the entryway to bhakti, and then etc. Adi, the other practices. It's a kind of water. It's spiritual water. I like that. Can notice it when you're flagging in your life. For instance, you might feel overwhelmed by circumstances, if that's ever happened to anybody, because there's a lot of pressure to perform in the world, academically, socially. And when we take the water of hearing and chanting, like we're doing here on Yutyam, it's a natural way we feel revived. What to speak of, we grow. I mean, there's so many ways in which by watering the heart and the seed within the heart, which is the sincerity to come closer to Krishna, then it happens quite naturally as when you water a plant, it grows. Some of the ways that are naturally effective are to hear in the association of like-minded devotees who are more advanced than oneself. That was a suggestion that Caitanya Mahāprabhu gave to Sanātana Gosvāmī. And it's also mentioned in the Bhāgavatam, a phrase that I picked out when reading Prabhupāda's purports. He said that the holes of the ear appear to be very small, but actually, once the sound goes in, it's as big as the sky. It's unlimited. It's not that you'll fill up. I've heard enough, and now that's it. But you can continue hearing and hearing. You'll never find a satiation point. So these 2 points are helpful in calibrating how we continue our devotional service and how to position ourselves so we make advancement. Here in the association of like-minded devotees who are more advanced than oneself. If you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room. Try to be in the room where there are people more advanced than you. Yeah, it's amazing. If you think about the holes of the ears, there are many different descriptions throughout in the Shastra about the karna, or the ear. For instance, Satam prasangam mama virya sambido bhavanti hrit karna rasayana kata says, Kapila Dev, when you get in an association of devotees, you're going to hear about Krishna, and that goes to your heart. And then you're going to make advancement one step after another. And so the sound vibration, too fast, go back from the ear, it goes to the heart. Hrit, the heart, and karna, the ear. So the next image is from my neighborhood. I did promise something about from the world. I used to call it from my neighborhood. There were other examples. This is actually from my neighborhood. I took this picture. That's a storm drain. When it rains, water goes down the gutters, and then it goes in that grill. And everywhere in the Bay Area, there are these emblems that say no dumping drains to bay. So one day when I was walking past this chanting japa, I was thinking about that. And it came to my mind that my ears are like those grills. Because whatever goes in there ends up in the bay of my heart. It's just a fact, isn't it? When you hear something, when you associate with people and there's some discussion of any kind, that the flavor of that discussion, the mood of that discussion leaves an impression in your heart. So I was thinking that this is one of the admonitions that Lord Chaitanya gives, and his disciples like Rupa Goswami talk about, be careful what you put in, because if you dump toxins in your ear, so to speak, the sound vibration like gramya kata means useless talk. Then it goes into your heart, and that's what you have to live with. So don't dump. Make sure you're very deliberate what goes in your ear. Okay. Mantra. Does anybody remember from the Ramayana how Kaikeyi was eager for Ram to be anointed king until her evil-hearted employee enviously spoke to her about Ram and how he would neglect her son, Bharat. And just by hearing from her for a few minutes, her heart changed. So beware of the mantra effect. If you think it's inconsequential, it's not. To be around somebody who's unnecessarily or perniciously critical, especially of devotees, or who they're on a bent that they want to find fault with others in a non-constructive way. And that goes in your ear and it will have an effect just as it did on KK. The hearing process also is a homing device, or our ears, I should say, are our homing device. Just like I've always been amazed by birds who can find their way from faraway places back to their roost. You know, like pigeons. Niharika, have you seen this? The pigeons, homing pigeons you've heard of? Homing pigeons are pigeons that people raise, and then they could take them 100, 200 miles, 1,000 miles away and let them go, and they'll come right back to where they were as they can find home. And I found this sense of homing in other species as well, like fish. I took some friends to Muir Woods, which is a place Prabhupada walked. It's one of the remaining redwood forests that weren't cut down here in the Bay Area after the earthquake at the beginning of the century. And there's a stream that runs through it, and there are these fish called coho salmon. And I saw this ranger who is wearing gaiters and in the water pulling out little pieces of trash. And I asked him what he was doing, and he said that it's called micro trash. People throw things and coins even into the water thinking that they'll get good luck. And it disturbs the homing system in the coho salmon. So I asked him more about that. He said they're born in the freshwater stream, and then when they mature, they swim downstream to the ocean. Then they'll go as much as 2,000 miles in the ocean, swimming around, and then for a couple of years, and then they come back to the same stream and they swim upstream and they find the very place where they were born. And then they spawn there and then they die. And I asked him about how they do that. He said there were several theories, but one of them was they could smell their way back. And that's why the micro trash disturbs the homing system that the fish are able to smell where they were from. So I made a parallel with that. And when we hear, that's our homing device. You can hear home. You can hear Godhead. You can hear Krishna. And if you hear, then it compels you to go back to Godhead. There's a sense of being compelled. And then there's also a sense of direction. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam. Krishna gives intelligence. Which way to go, how to get there. As obviously he's doing for these fish and the birds. Of course, he'll do it for us too. If we hear about how to go back to Godhead, he's going to give us intelligence how to do it. Okay. So this is drip system. I've upgraded my drip system, but this was the original drip system I used in my garden. It was invented in Israel. And it has these nozzles. You can see down in the plant that there's a blue nozzle because that fern, it needed a certain amount of water. And throughout my whole garden, front yard, backyard, there are nozzles that are individually calibrated for each plant. It took a little while to install that, but I'll speak more about the drip system and what it means to us in the next slide. You see, that's a watering schedule. And you'll see there's a front yard, driveway strip, main back beds, wood raised beds, lawn, brick patio around my house. And each one of them takes a certain amount of water. And since I'm out of station, as they say in India, I'm out of town 50% of the time, at least these days. What's going to happen to my garden? Well, it's going to get watered because it's got a drip system and it's on an automatic watering schedule. Next. You see, that's the device. Rain Dial Plus. Day watering schedule, valve run times, program start time, set program run and off. It has those different features. And once I set it up, then all the plants get watered on schedule with the right amount of water. So Prabhupada gave this phrase. He said, get practiced automatically. So there's a way in which we could make a watering schedule for the Shravanadi Jal for ourselves. If you take time to set it up, for instance, there's Chad. Remember way back at the beginning of this program? Can you think that far back? When we together, we chanted a chapter of Bhagavad Gita. What if that was part of your watering schedule? You just said, every day I chant a chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Whatever else is happening in the world, I do my chapter. And then the other one, these are brands actually. The next one, the middle top is called Be a Page by Page, Be a Sage. And there's an app just like that. It tells how many pages you have to read each day of any of Prabhupada's books to finish them within a particular time period. Hey, you could add that to your watering schedule, right? Rain Dial Plus. Then what if you made just suggestions? You could do something on Ekadashi to do something extra. And what to speak of Kartik. It's a time when you could say, here's what I'm going to do something extra. Holy days. We don't have very many of those in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, right? Wrong, Vaiśeṣika. We have one every week at least. So you could do something on holy days, and what to speak of every day, Brahma Muhurta. Just saying, if you set your schedule, there's a way in which that Shravanadi Jal becomes automatic. You're not even thinking that this is something special. You just think, of course, you do think it's special because it feels special, but it's already set up. So get an automatic watering system of Shravanadi Jal in your life and just make it what you do as part of your life. And then your bhakti kripa will grow. One of my favorite quotes is from the Bhāgavatam, Lord Kapiladev, obviously, third canto. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one can get liberation by seriously discharging devotional service unto me and thereby hearing for a long time about me or from me. By thus executing one's prescribed duties, there will be no reaction and one will be freed from the contamination of matter. That's the result. And this was in relationship to Devahuti saying, it really seems impossible to get out of the material world. She said it's almost seems impossible to accept that I'm not my body because it seems like I am, and I probably have been this way for millions of lifetimes. So how to get out? And Kapila Dev assures her, he said, just hear for a long time, Shravanadi Jal, water, every day, something, and execute prescribed duties. There'll be no reaction, and you'll be free from the contamination of matter. That's the result of Shravanadi Jal. Nothing else does that for us. There's no panacea in the material world, only from the spiritual platform. Yes. I picked up this concept of the law of large numbers. The results obtained from a large number of trials should be close to the expected value and tend to become closer as more trials are performed. I just related this to the practice of devotional service. Sometimes a person may take the devotional service, but their practice is perhaps minimal, which is okay. You have to start from where you are. And perhaps even worse, well, perhaps there's also gaps. And then one may not be getting the expected result. But if you experiment in your life and try to do more hearing and chanting, you'll come closer to the expected result because of the law of large numbers. Do it more. It relates with what Kapila Dev said for a long time. Keep doing it. Keep doing the experimentation with hearing. And because of that, you'll come close. Teachable moments, these are rare and they're extremely valuable. What is a teachable moment? An unplanned opportunity that arises to give one insight. And it could come from a startling circumstance. It could come from a reversal of fortune. It could come from anywhere if we're mindful about how this universe is a place of learning. Everything is didactic in this world. It's designed that way just to give us an opportunity to come to know ourselves and our relationship with Krishna. So when we come across situations where we seem displaced, or it could be, as I mentioned, any circumstance seems unplanned, take it as an opportunity for insight. Look for and take advantage of teachable moments. Dry spells in the Bhakti garden. What happens when sometimes in your life there's some way in which you're not able to attend to your practice as much as you had been before? Could be a dry spell. So there's what's called an aquifer. Aquifers are underground lakes. And when it rains, most of the water drains into the ground and it goes into the aquifer. So even if the ground on the outside looks a little bit dry, and that looks definitely pretty dry, there's a way in which there's still water available. When we hear and chant, when we can, taking advantage of every opportunity to do as much devotional service, Shravanam Kirtanam, as possible, then when there is a dry period, it could be for a day, could be for a week, or even longer, we have something to draw on because we have a reservoir stored underneath in our hearts. It's very important because we don't know the twists and turns of life. And if we're able to take advantage of every opportunity, then we'll be able to draw upon that. Okay. I love rain, live in California. When we get it, we always feel fortunate. It's manna from heaven, actually. And so is the Shravanadi Jal. And weeding, this is something that Caitanya Mahāprabhu recommended. I don't know if you can see it because the label, weed a small patch of time, kind of covers it, but that gardening tool is called a Mont Blanc. And my gardener I have a new gardener now, but my gardener from years ago had showed me this. It's a Japanese tool. It has little teeth on it, and it's effective at pulling out weeds. But one thing about weeding is the weeds come up overnight sometimes, and if you go away for a week, your whole garden is full of weeds. So it can seem daunting. And oftentimes, if I weed, I don't do it as much as I used to. I have a garden crew that comes, but when I did weed for myself and whenever I do, I just try to do one weed at a time or a small patch and say, I'll just do that one patch. Because if I try to think of the whole garden and think I'll take out all the weeds, I'll be overwhelmed and I'd say I can't do it. And in a similar way, Mahaprabhu talked about weeds that grow up along with the bhakti creeper, as if you look at one at a time or a small patch, do what you can do to improve yourself when it comes to rooting out habits that are contrary to our true nature as spiritual souls. do it a little at a time, one patch at a time, and you'll feel encouraged. Yes. Also, winning with the basics. Slow and correct leads to fast and correct, better than before. It's a lesson I learned from my Madunga teacher. My tendency was as soon as I got a beat, I'd start speeding up. And he says, slow down. Go as slow as you can for as long as you can until your hands automatically play the beat. And it works in many different ways is to do it correctly and go slow as you need to be fully aware of what you're doing. Go ahead. And also, one of the charming aspects of plants is they're opportunistic. They'll grow anywhere. And bhakti sprouts wherever there's Shravananijal. You may go to a place that you think is barren and nobody's interested, but as soon as you start to hear and chant, you'll see that seeds grow. They're everywhere. Just like I've seen plants growing out of a crack in the sidewalk, and then they actually break the sidewalk apart as they grow. And similarly, the power of Shravananijal is will become apparent the more we do it. Yes. Yeah, I took a picture of this. Can you read it? It says M&M forever. That and somebody wrote this, put this graffito on a sidewalk, uh, and apparently somebody was enamored of somebody else named M, and they were M also. So they put this little heart. If people still do this these days, but it was prevalent when I was in grammar school, high school. He's like, oh, such and such has a crush. So they put M and such and such plus such and such. But I noted this because it says forever. And I was thinking, where does that impetus come from for this loving or this attraction? Is it forever? Where's Eminem now? They probably went off to different schools or who knows where they are. And but that sense that I want that connection forever, that's naturally there in our hearts. And it can be fulfilled when we connect to Krishna. Yes. Krishna doesn't possess the fault of impersonality. He has a heart. And this is in the Bhāgavatam. He lies down on his own heart, spread in the form of the sky. When you look at the sky and how expansive it is, Bhāgavatam says that's how big Krishna's heart is. Yes. O Lord of Madhu, as the Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you, without being diverted to anyone else. Hare Krishna. Would you look at that? It's 4:30. Uncanny. Well, usually we take time for some discussion regarding our personal lives and things like that, but we ran out of time. But we'll do it in subsequent meetings. It's kind of nice to share realizations about how your life's going, what's bugging you, what's working, what's not working, things like that. Anyway, thank you, Brajaras Bhavana, Anapayini Bhakti, for being so foundational in keeping Youth Jam going. Thank you, Madhuri Saki, even though you're on the other side of the stone, you're still attending, and I think it's past midnight. And thank you, everyone who joined us for the first time. Please make this your home away from home. We just want to hear and chant together. And we would like to develop a powerful youth movement and take over the world also. I'm not youthful. Well, I feel youthful, but I would like to see those who have the advantage of gained the advantage from obviously practicing devotional service in previous lifetimes to have every facility to have full engagement in the Krishna consciousness movement and be able to help millions and millions of other people. Shall we end here? Yes. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Caitanya Mahāprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Lakshmana Shringadev, if you so desire, please bless and empower everyone who joined Youth Jam today, everybody who joined and then dropped off after a couple minutes, everyone who thought about joining but they were busy, everyone who slept through it, those who haven't heard of it yet or will join in the future, that they'll always have an attraction for hearing and chanting in the association of devotees and will feel compassion in their hearts for the people of the world who don't yet have the advantage of association with devotees. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please unmute and say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj.
Lord Premanande.
Hare
Vanchakalpalishcha, Kripasavevacha,
Krishna.
Patitanam Pavanibhyo, Krishna Vebhyo Namo, Anantakoti Vaishnaviniki Jai, Gaur Premanande, Haribo. See you soon, everybody. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for joining Youth Jam, and we look forward to seeing you next week.